Before we get into it, if you enjoyed these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. And keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as, investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. All right, folks, here we are on Tuesday, May 6th. We're going to take a look at NIO today. So I'm still keeping track of NIO. I know I haven't put out a video in a while. That's for a few reasons, and NIO is caught up in the brunt of all of them plus some extras. So my recent sort of pullback from making videos every day on different stocks was largely due to the macro forces that were just dominating, right? You look at obviously this stretch through here, just getting dominated by the tariff news, the other world chaos and stocks are just sort of mostly following suit and not so much acting unto themselves. NIO is in a pretty interesting position at the moment, so to the extent to which it can start to flip the script from just following the macro forces and move on its own, I think it could be quite an interesting look at the moment. But aside from the tariff news that is obviously impacting China and therefore NIO. NIO, to some degree, I feel is wrapped up in the whole debacle with Tesla and the boycotts that are happening and the ways in which maybe it could be benefiting from that. It could find some beneficial footing in that. I don't know, but that's also interesting. And, it in and of itself was outperforming some of the market was my standpoint back here, and I still believe that that was the case. But obviously it could only hold on to that so long and ultimately got pushed down very close to $3 and has clawed its way back since then. Now that's just sort of setting the landscape here. Now, from the chart perspective, I want to point out basically three things. Let's take a look at this yellow line, because this is most fitting at the moment because it's very, very close to this yellow line. What that yellow line is it's not, say, the longest lasting uptrend support, and it is incredibly slight. This isn't like a steep uptrend support like this, right? It's not like this candle to this group of candles and up to here when it broke that uptrend support. This is incredibly slight, but this comes from back here when it dipped down to 361 and it jumped up ultimately there to $6, right? So it almost doubled, and then it pulled back significantly and it found great support along this yellow uptrend support line. And like I said, it's very slight uptrend support, which makes me feel like it could play a significant role. Now, obviously it didn't hold here, but it did put up a bit of a fight. It came down sort of 2 candles through it, and then it tried to pop 2 candles back through it. Came down, wrestled with it on this candle, and then lost it. But I mean, think of what was happening. This was right in the beginning of April. So it wasn't like April 2nd, the day where all of the tariffs and everything were announced and everything really sort of kicked into high gear. I don't know, there was some stuff in play, obviously, prior to that, but, this being a big brunt of it. So the things that were prior to that, obviously getting swept up here, and then it did try to put up a fight there and bounce off of that level, I think, until it just, right where my cursor is right here on the 2nd of April, it couldn't hold on, but nothing could hold on. And then it dropped 7.5% on this day. So to me, what it looks like is it's reapproaching this uptrend support. So I would like to see if we are absent of any crazy macro chaos, and I don't know that we will be, but if we are, can NIO, just of its own chart and of its own volition, bounce off of this uptrend support? That will be really interesting to see. Will the macro forces let it happen? I don't know, but we should find out here in the days to come. I mean, even just today alone, it's wicking up nicely off of that level. So we'll see what the rest of the week looks like, but this will be a telling moment, I think, to see if this uptrend support, at least for the time being, is going to hold. And just keep in mind, all support levels, all patterns, whatever, eventually break. So I'm not saying this is going to be the case forever. And believe me, if you're a long-term holder, you probably don't want this to be the case forever, because for NIO to be in its still sort of like very growth stage, it's too slight of an uptrend. At some point you need some explosive movements due to like just tremendous news or like big barriers being broken, right? So that yellow uptrend support, that's the first line. Secondly, what it looks like when it fell down here and caught support. Now, granted, it was below this 324, but that 324 is the lowest point that we had charted on the chart. That was ahead of that $3 level, right? We have 267 down there. Luckily for the bulls, it didn't have to reach all the way down there. But as far as I can tell, we have a 194 as well. So we do have quite a few levels in the chart again. Hard to know how dicey or crazy things are going to get. But that being the last level on the chart in the threes, it did sort of hold up to that. And what it looks like it did to me to an extent was, there was a bit of a gap here. There was a much bigger gap here on this day when it dropped about 5.5%. It sort of looks to me like it came down, tested that $3 psychological level, came back up and filled this gap. And now it's coming back down to potentially test that uptrend support that we were just talking about. Obviously, there's several other gaps here and here, that it could come back up and fill if it's in the mood to find support at that uptrend and continue its merry way, filling gaps to the upside. That may be what's in its future. It could be quite interesting, but I think it's worth pointing out that that's what this sort of motion looks to me. Now, of course, also there was some relenting of the incessant macro forces. And that's sort of what will allow these stocks to start to act of their own accord and not just get dragged around by the global market. But that could obviously reignite at any moment. Seemingly so just from a social media post. So keep your eyes peeled. Now, lastly, so this is number 3. So we have the yellow uptrend support, the gap fill through those purple levels that we have in the chart. And then this blue line here was what I felt was very, very a potential for a strong magnetic zone, what I used to call in my early stock videos magnetic zones. And all that means is there's a lot of repetitive activity historically in that zone. When the price is above that zone, it seems to want to come and gravitate back toward it. When the price is below that zone, it seems to want to gravitate back up to it. And so now, this level is at 436. So it's sort of a wacky level. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere in terms of like it's not a $3 psychological level or a $4 psychological level. It's $4.36. But as you can see, it's played a significant role several times here, right? This whole range here, this whole range here. And, that's where it rejected off of when it came up and filled that gap. So it came up, let's just pretend that the hypothesis is correct, bounced off of the psychological 3, had some relenting from the macro market, came up, filled this gap, and magnetized, that 436. It reached up as high as 444, but ultimately couldn't press through the 436 and found resistance off of it. Now, could it sort of make a second run? That would be, what I would be looking for here. Support off of the uptrend support and looking to move back toward that, again, what I would have years gone by called a magnetic level, that 436. But that's why that 436 is there, and that's why it's in the blue. The purple levels are upside down, extension levels from the extended move from this 771 high down to this extended low here in the 4s, and then the swing up to 536. So I extended that move down, and that's where those purple levels come from. On the Thinkorswim side of things, won't spend as much time on this, but we'll pop back to the Weeble chart to recap in a moment. But nothing tremendous happening here in the TTM squeeze indicator. A little bouncing off of the put trigger in April, so that could be a good sign. It sort of bounced off the put trigger, bounced off the call trigger, but something like NIO that has been under such distress for so long, not just acquiescing, not just giving way to the put trigger, if you want to infuse a little hopium, maybe that's a decent sign. And if it's given some leeway, maybe it'll give, have an opportunity to move here. It's just sitting mid-range of the channel. It's basically at the base ATR. So it's about as mid-range as you can get on the daily chart. on this particular Thinkorswim setup as I have it. So opportunity for it to maybe kind of convalesce here a little bit, consolidate, and then see where it wants to go. Doesn't mean it has to go up, doesn't mean it has to go down, but see where it kind of wants to go here. I talked about this yesterday with SoFi, actually, where the chart was sort of looking like maybe it too was interested in spending much of May consolidating. I don't know if I had just said April. If I said April, I meant May, this month right now. Consolidating and then sort of making its move later on in May or into June, July. But yeah, that's what that looks like. So again, quick recap here. The two most interesting levels to me, if we wanted to just pretend like none of these purples are here, the yellow and the blue. My look at the moment is, could we come down, confirm this uptrend support here, and make a move toward that 436? And if it can, do we see some motion through it, right? Maybe working, the next level I'd have here obviously is this 455 on the extension levels. But you do have this gap up here that it would get into that gap at like 499, so just ahead of that $5. It would get into filling that gap and it would complete that fill at about 510. So it would get you into the fives. But first things first, can this uptrend support hold? And can we get some motion back toward its North Pole, if we want to think of it that way? I think we should know just in the coming days, unless it just kind of like plops itself on top of this support, which maybe that's good enough to say, okay, it's working really hard to just hold the support level, and kind of see what it wants to do from there. But yeah, we should know more by the close of the week for sure. All right, folks, so I hope that your trading week is off to a good start. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.